Hey, I'm Justic.
And I'm Sam Fritchell. Welcome to Star Wars Deep Digging, Season. No, wait. Part 2, Season 1, Episode 9?
I don't think you need to keep track anymore. I'll just put the titles of the episodes in the thumbnails, okay?
Uh, well, that's a big relief off my shoulders. I keep forgetting where we left off.
In the meantime, The Red One by Ray Carson. Sand was everywhere in the little droid's.
Red 1? There was no Red 1.
And the red one. Come on. Well, come on, Red, let's go. Sand was everywhere in the little droid's treads and his articulation joints, even deep inside his activating couplers. Dust caked his photoreceptors so badly he could only make out vague shapes.
Droid, what's your name? Please, tell me your name. It's R5T4. My name is Red. Red 1.
Not that it mattered. The extreme heat inside the sandcrawler, followed by the occasional nighttime snap freeze, had warped his casings badly. Between that and the grinding sand, he could only turn his head a few degrees to look at anything anyway. He could still vocalize, still flash his lights, still move his legs, but he'd been a prisoner on this blasted crawler for 4 years, shopped around by Jawas to every moisture farmer in the territory, and in all that time he'd received little to no maintenance. More than anything in the galaxy, he wanted to be sold, escape the same crawler, fulfill his programming by serving a new master, someone who would clean his joints once in a while, offer a few drops of lubricant, give him a purpose. But time was running out. He was lonely, and he was dying. One evening, the little droid was snug in his nest of scrap metal, tucked away into the coolest, darkest corner of the cargo hold, when two Jawas approached. One carried a cylindrical object with a handle, a stunner, no doubt. The Jawas had finally given up on him. They would zap him, rip off any parts that still had value, and toss the rest of him into the furnace to melt for scrap. He gave a sad chirp of resignation, hoping it would be quick. That does make you wonder, can droids feel pain? That part's been kind of inconsistent, right?
That would explain a lot with battle droids.
To his surprise, the Jawas inspected him instead. Nattering at each other, they communicated with sense as much as words, and the droid had never been fitted with olfactory receptors, but he understood enough. Something about a farm, an astromech droid, and clear as a Tatooine day came that wonderful, glorious word, sell. Okay, so he's been programmed to understand Jawa'ese. And we know it's Jawa'ese because they're communicating with sense instead of just with words, so it's not the Jawa trade language. The Jawas argued but came to an agreement quickly. One left, the other lifted the cylindrical object toward the droid, who twittered at the Jawa, afraid to hope. The creature said nothing in response. It slowly tipped the object, and a cool drop of thick lubricant suddenly coated the droid's left photoreceptor, blurring everything. Carefully, the Jawa used the edge of its sleeve to wipe away sand and grime. Then it placed generous drops of lubricant in his joints, his head swivel, his treads, everything that had been grinding to a slow, awful death by sand these last 2 years. The red droid let out a worried sigh. Nothing had ever felt so good. Sure, he could only remember 4 years back to the point of his memory wipe, but he was certain that nothing in his entire mysterious existence had been as magnificent as this. The Jawa scraped sand out of his tool compartment, swiped down his other photoreceptors, gave him a pat on the head, and left him alone in his nest of scrap. He stared after the creature, his vision a little less scratched and blurry now, and marveled at his fortune. If he understood correctly, a nearby farm had specifically requested an astromech droid. Since the Jawas had gone to the trouble of cleaning him up a little, he had a good chance of finally finding a new master. The little droid hunkered into his nest and powered down to save energy. By morning, he would be his brightest, cleanest self. Mere hours later, when the scorching heat was giving way to evening coolness, a jolt woke him. He lurched up, the washers and springs and scrap shavings of his nest tumbling off his head. He recognized that clanging sound and the flurry of Jawa excitement that followed. The sandcar's magnet had suctioned up a new bit of scavenge, which was now being disposited into the cargo hold. He swiveled his head for a better look, expecting to see the usual bit of decades-old wreckage. A shape materialized in the darkness. It was small, barely more than a meter tall, with a dome top. A round silver body glinted in the meager light, trimmed with shiny blue. It blurted angrily, threatening the Jawas with death if they didn't back off right this second. The red droid was happy to hear binary, the first language of his programming. That it took a moment for this implication to register. In case anybody's curious, yes, the droid speak, the beeps and boops that R2 communicates in, is indeed based off of binary code. Another astromech, in beautiful condition. An elite R2 unit, no less, as superior to his own line as a blaster to an angry fist. Ah, yeah, Industrial Automaton really downgraded things when they went to the R5s from the R2s. Not sure how the R3s and R4s factor into it. He would never be sold now. No one would pick him over the newcomer. The R2 unit continued to protest as Jawas fitted him with restraining bolts. Okay, this is a bit inconsistent with the movie because he gets hit with the restraining bolt before he gets sent into the Sandcrawler, but I suppose they needed some way for R5 to be witness to that, so it's a fair liberty.
Also, I do know an R3 and R4 unit.
Oh, everyone does. They're all over the place. Like, I checked the list of R5 units. Oh, man, that is long. Long. The creatures ignored its threats, talking excitedly with one another. This was the second fully functioning droid they'd pulled from the sand today. An unprecedented fortune. Clearly, their luck was changing. Soon, theirs would be the richest clan in the territory. When the R2 unit's restraining bolt was fixed tight, he gave one last indignant beep, then scooted across the cargo hold to chat with the Sandcrawler's earlier discovery, a golden droid with a grating voice. They seemed to know each other. As the little red droid powered down, he wondered what it might be like to have bright lights and a sleek casing and a head swivel that could rotate without pain, to have someone to talk to. In the dead of night, he was jolted awake a second time by a mechanical alarm prodding his access compartments. Ah, now we get to another reference to the radio drama. Gee, that thing was influential. He squealed, swinging his body around to dislodge the thing poking him. Of course, in the radio drama, R2 was successful with his sabotage. The silver and blue droid stood before him, caught in the act of sabotage, his pincer appendage dangling in the air. He whimpered, a sad apology. The red droid bleated indignation. Sorry for sabotaging me? Or sorry you were caught? Yes, the other replied. Then he introduced himself. I'm R2-D2 and I'm on an important mission. The red droid stared. Obviously, the excitement of capture and restraint had overrun the R2 unit's circuits.
Yes, R2-D2's beeps and boops in some Star Wars books are translated into basic, especially in the Revenge of the Sith book, which I've already actually looked over. In Revenge of the Sith novelization, R2-D2's beeps and boops are translated into basic, so it's like R2 is actually communicating with the other people.
And plus, the starfighters have built-in translators, so there's that. Yeah, you can actually catch glimpses of that in the movies. The red droid stared. Obviously, the excitement of capture and restraint had overrun the R2 unit circuits. Still, he chose to respond in kind. I'm R5-D4. No mission that I know of. My memory was wiped 4 years ago. You think he used to be a waiter at Jabba's palace? Droid which he definitely did not have any force abilities because there's no such thing as a Jedi droid. And no, the Iron Knights would not give someone the name Skippy nor house them in an astromech droid module. This guy is not a shard, right? We're all agreed on that, right?
Yeah, I believe Skippy the Jedi droid is non-canon, even for Legends.
Good.
Basically, I believe it's non-canon to canon, non-canon to Legends.
Okay, and I know y'all never leave any comments anyway, which is fine, that's your choice, but in the case that you do, please don't start a flame war over this. Okay, remember, Skippy the Jedi droid never happens. We made it up. This one was invented by a writer.
Skippy the Jedi droid was an advertisement created by Lucasfilm.
False. Fake. It never happens. It never happens. R2D2 continued as if he hadn't heard. I must be sold tomorrow. I have to escape this sandcrawler. The fate of the galaxy depends on it. What a strange droid. Is that why your pincer was deep in my access compartment? He asked. You were sabotaging your competition? Yes. Please, the rebellion need your help. The word rebellion triggered something. The phantom of a memory. So this is a weird one because in Legends, he doesn't become a member of the rebellion until after the events of A New Hope. Thank the Galaxy Guide role-playing source books. So
he did become a spy for the Jedi Order in the video game Jedi Academy.
No, that was a different R5.
They all look the same. They all look.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this R5 is the one we can see in the background during Attack of the Clones, though. I mean, he had to work with Carson Teva at one point. I mean, the question is, how could he know that if his memories have been erased too? I think there's, a backup somewhere. Yeah, it makes sense that there was a backup somewhere.
How many R5s are there in the galaxy that look exactly the same?
Well, we're not even getting into Lando's one from Jedi Outcast. An imprint on his circuits that no web could touch. Or maybe he was simply moved by R2D2's sincerity. Whatever it was, he almost believed. But the superior programming of R2 units made them capable of deception in certain circumstances. Everyone knew that. He couldn't trust a single word the blue droid said. Please, R2D2 said again. The red droid was not capable of deception, so he could only tell R2D2 the truth. If I don't escape this sandcrawler and find a new master soon, I will cease to function. R2D2 murmured sympathy, but then he said, I already have a master, and if I don't find him, the galaxy is doomed. Again, that strange tug on his memory banks. Something he couldn't quite process. A truth that lay just beyond his sensors. A couple of Jawas paused what they were doing to glance their way. R2D2 had lost his chance at stealth. I won't try to hurt you again, R2D2 said, and with that he rolled away into the dark recesses of the hold. The little red droid didn't take any chances. He stayed powered up all night, on highest alert. Morning came, sending dim, dusty light through seams where doors and panels didn't quite fit together. The crawler lurched to a stop, and the cargo bay opened to a blinding hot world. The little red droid quickly adjusted his photoreceptors to compensate. The Jawas gathered up a handful of their most presentable droids and herded them down the ramp onto hard-packed dirt. And they are quite presentable indeed. Yeah, I remember them from LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. Beautiful, all of them. R5-D4 was second in line, the sleeker, more beautiful R2 unit right behind him. The little red droid had a single slim hope.
I just thought of this. Droid fashion show.
That would be beautiful. Maybe this particular farm would be too poor to afford the other droid. Maybe, just maybe, they'd have to settle for him. At the bottom of the ramp, a middle-aged human male stood waiting, hands on his hips, eyes permanently squinted from sand and sun. His desert clothes and utility belt were shabby, but clean and well-mended. His beard was scant and gray, but neat and trimmed. Surely a man who took such pains would make a fine master. The red droid was certain of it. Behind the farmer lay a homestead. It wasn't much. An adobe hut, a few holes in the ground, and the tall, spindly towers of several moisture evaporators. Compared with the giant rust bucket he'd been riding for 4 years, it seemed like heaven. Beside him, R2-D2 danced to get the farmer's attention. R5-D4 stood stoic and still, though his circuits were firing so rapidly that his internal temperature was rising dangerously. His series was known for excitability, for unreliability. He would prove their reputation wrong. He would remain calm, behaving like a perfect droid. The farmer strode toward him, robe billowing. A boy followed at his heels, slump-shouldered and sulky. He was barely emerged from the human adolescent stage, slender and tanned, hair blasted blonde by Tatooine's twin suns. The older man's dark eyes zeroed in on his photoreceptors, and with a lift of his chin, he said, Yeah, I'll take that red one. R5-D4 almost blew his circuits. Had the farmer actually said that? Had R5 really been chosen? The farmer continued down the line, dismissing R2-D2 with a wave. No, not that one. He had chosen him. R5 couldn't believe his luck. It was all he could do to stay calm to keep from rocking in place as the slender boy crouched before him to inspect his joints. Can you imagine him rocking in place? That's cute. The farmer was interviewing the golden droid now, but R5D4 hardly paid attention. After 4 long years, he finally had a new master. This farmer and boy were going to be so glad they bought him. He would be the best droid they'd ever... Beside him, R2D2 loosed a mournful sigh. You'll find a master, R5D4 assured him in binary. Someone will buy you. R2D2 replied, There is no time. Luke, the farmer called. He indicated R5D4 and the tall golden droid. Take these two over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up before dinner. But I was going to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. You can waste time with your friends when your chores are done.
Basically, R2 was looking at R5, that R5's like, don't look at me like that. And R2 suddenly keeps going. R5's all like, stop. You're making me not want to get purchased.
You can waste time with your friends when your chores are done, the farmer said. Now come on, get to it, the boy sighed. All right, come on. He gestured at the golden droid to follow him toward the farm. And the red one, come on. R2D2 chirruped sadly. The galaxy is doomed, he said. R5D4 hesitated. He had a bad feeling. The boy realized the little red droid wasn't following. Well, come on, Red, let's go! R5 shook himself into action and lurched after the boy. He was going to get cleaned up, by his new master, no less. He'd been waiting for this moment for 4 years. Behind him, R2D2 danced wildly in place. Help me, R5, he pleaded. You're my only hope. R5D4 swiveled. I know, it's a little gratuitous. R5D4 swiveled his head toward R2D2 just in time to watch Jawa lift the control box and zap the blue droid. The restraining bolt did its work, and R2D2 went silent and still. The bad feeling intensified. The boy and the golden droid continued toward the farm. R5D4 followed, but he crept along, his movements weighted by uncertainty. His circuits were firing so rapidly now, his internal processors churning and churning, trying to tell him something. Understanding hit him like a suction magnet. He believed. He believed R2D2 was on an important mission. He believed the droid was out to save the galaxy, and something inside him, an imprint, a phantom memory, something as old and stubborn as the stars, insisted that he held.
This reminded me of the moment where the man who created the Rebel Alliance finally believed in what he was creating.
Oh yeah, self-sacrifice and all that. HK55 would be proud.
Oh yeah. Ah yes. Oh yeah, HK55. That was self-sacrifice against a guy who later became one of the good guys.
War makes strange bedfellows. In something inside him, an imprint, a phantom memory, something as old and stubborn as the stars, insisted that he help. Because the cause of the rebellion was his mission too. He knew what he had to do. For the first time in 4 years of awareness, he would execute a deception. As a mere R5 unit, he shouldn't have been able to, but in the split second it took him to formulate a plan, he discovered no barriers, no limits. He had been altered. Okay, more evidence that he's a former member of the rebellion. No time to dwell on it now. He had to do an emergency energy purge, one that would take finesse and concentration. He prepared with care, shutting down unnecessary circuitry, loosening the hinge off his head plates. All that beautiful, precious lubricant the Jawas gave him the night before was circulating through his joints, calming his wires, cooling his circuits. He redirected its flow, collecting it into a mass just behind his photoreceptors. It would take every bit to be convincing. Once ready, the little red droid did not hesitate. He diverted power and discharged it all with a single devastating blow. His head plate popped up, showering sparks. Smoke poured out, the superheated lubricant making it as thick and grimy as a storm cloud. The boy whirled at the sound. Uncle Owen, he called. Yeah, the farmer said. This R2 unit has a bad motivator. Look. R5D4 willed himself to utter stillness. Smoke continued to pour from his head, and a tiny drop of precious lubricant slipped down his casing. The farmer turned on the Jawas. What are you trying to push on us? He asked, arms flailing. R2D2 recovered from his restraining zap and whistled low and clear, trying to get someone's attention. When that didn't work, he danced in place, babbling loudly. Please notice R2, the red droid pleaded silently. It was the tall droid with the annoying voice who came to their rescue. He dabbed a golden finger on the boy's shoulder. "Excuse me, sir, but that R2 unit is in prime condition. A real bargain." The boy looked at R2D2 as if seeing him for the first time. "Uncle Owen," he called. "Yeah? What about that one?" The boy indicated the blue droid. One glance was all it took. "What about that blue one?" the farmer asked the Jawas. "We'll take that one." A Jawa gave R2D2 a nudge, and the silver droid scooted forward with a cry of victory. Another group surrounded R5D4. "Yeah, take it away," the boy said, waving smoke into his face. The red droid had damaged himself badly, but he could still function. He powered down everything but his auditory receptors and played dead, allowing the Jawas to lift him and carry him back toward the dark, horrible sandcrawler. In low power, surrounded by Jawa bodies, he could barely make out R2D2's twittering farewell. "Thank you, friends," the little blue droid called to him. "You may have saved the galaxy today. I will never forget you." R2D2's story was confirmed when Imperial stormtroopers came. The little red droid hunkered down in the nest of scrap, continuing to play dead while troopers interrogated the Jawas about the two droids they just sold. Afterward, lasers blasted anything that moved, filling the sandcrawler with screams, turning the air damp and hot. The stormtroopers left the crawler a smoking ruin littered with bodies. When he was certain the Imperials were gone for good, R5D4 extricated himself from his nest, depressed the ramp control, and rolled into the hot desert sunshine. After 4 years with the Jawas, their trade route was as familiar to him as his own circuitry, and he knew exactly which way to go. One of the moisture farms in the next valley would gladly take a free droid. He would be repaired, cleaned up, made useful. Later, if he was lucky, he might even find the rebellion. He would have to hurry, because his damage was critical. But he had no regrets, and he did not look back. R5D4 was barely a mote on the barren Ochre landscape as he rolled toward the horizon, free and full of hope. Okay, so...
This next chapter is written by the guy who wrote the Jedi Archives on Jedi Heroes.
Well, also, it's written by the guy who wrote the Kenobi novel.
And Tales of Old Republic Jedi Heroes, and parts of this book, and other books of the and others of its kind. The Kenobi book. He's written a lot of books.
Like A New Dawn, and the KOTOR comics, and The Living Force. Remember that, Mom?
Oh, and Knight Errant.
Yeah, we met him at Comic-Con. Okay, so in regards to R5D4, he's eventually acquired by the Squib, Mace Melian Winduarte, named after Mace Windu, because he's a hero to the Squibs, and sold to Voron Na'al in Mos Eisley. As Voron Na'al is a rebel spy, and also a historian who acquired these records for his record, he has R5D4 serve as a spy at the Imperial Prefect's office. Of course, said prefect's name is Eugene, by the way. Anyway, Eugene makes a run for it after the Battle of Endor. R5D4 gets his memories erased in the process, ends up working as a waiter at the Mos Eisley Cantina, but gets picked on by the customers. The EV-99 rescues him, sells him off to Pelimato, who will treat him better, and that's where we meet him in The Mandalorian Season 3, where he comes into Din Djarin's possession, and, well, I guess the rest is history. Still, we don't know whether Carson's ever met him before or after the events of A New Hope, so I guess there's more stories to tell. Okay, Rights by John Jackson Miller. The brain of a crate dragon occupied only a small portion of its massive skull. The rest of the space, according to Tusken lore, was stored for pure, unadulterated hate, a gift from one of the Sky Brothers far above. Yeah, we don't have time to get into Tusken religion. It's a bit complicated.
Or Tusken history. That's a long story.
A. Kobad thought that just one more foolish tale meant to frighten children, and those too feeble to hold a weapon. But facing down the crate in the box canyon in the jungle and waste, the burly young warrior could understand how the legend had gotten started. 4 times the Tusken had plunged the flanged point of his Gadurfi into the juvenile dragon's head. 4 times. He had missed anything vital, unleashing instead a torrent of teeth-gnashing, foot-stomping rage. That's why you gotta use explosives. Seriously, you can't kill a Krayt Dragon again with a Gadurfi. Seriously, amateurs.
I've heard a story of a Tusken Raider who killed a Krayt Dragon, not with a Gadurfi, but with a lightsaber.
Ah, good old Sherrod Hets. He was the best. There was no magic to it, of course. Any creature would react similarly to hose being poked into its head. He simply had to keep punching. Presumably, he could avoid being trampled. "Hurry, cousin!" called out another cloth-wrapped warrior. Clinging crazily to the beast's tail, Eivor had already lost his weapon in the dust, and his twin brother was somewhere back there too, having been thrown aside by the mighty Krayts. Among Tusken clans, it was said the birth of twins was a poor omen. Whoever had come up with that one had definitely met his cousin. It was up to Akopa to help keep his foolish twin alive. Yeah, so they've got like a reverse Yuzhong Vong thing going on. With a booming war cry, he charged the stomping mammoth, sidestepping its advance only at the last instant. He caught the side of the dragon's mouth with the trang, the bent end of the weapon, hooking the creature. It bit down instinctively. Such a bite would be enough to finish almost anything the Krayt would encounter. But this meal was not bone, but durasteel, scavenged by the tribe from some old settlements. The hefty weapon's tip was doused with sandbat venom. In the taste of that fast-acting paralytic, the dragon stumbled sideways in confusion. Oh, that would about do it. Akoba hung on to the shaft of the Gadurfi, forcing the weapon farther into the monster's maw. The Krayt collapsed, narrowly missing him and kicking up a shower of sands as it struck the surface. Akoba wrested the weapon free from its mouth and climbed its scaled head. This time it did not react to his repeated stabs. The deed was done. "Yes!" Eivor called out the brave tongue of the Tuskens, releasing his clench on the dragon's tail. "We are adults now!" Okay, this can't possibly be something all the Tuskens have to do. There aren't enough Krayt Dragons in the whole of Tatooine for that. I am. I don't know about you two. Akoba looked back to see Eivor's brother clambering through the sand toward them, injured but not broken. Before he could chide them for their performance, he spied the watchers from the clan descending from the ridge onto the battlegrounds. And he dislodged his Gadurfi from the Krayt's brain and raised it into the air. "I am Akoba!" he shouted, standing proudly on the corpse's giant head. "I have slain a Krayt Dragon. I am a Tusken." "You have slain a hatchling in the heat of day," said one of the newcomers. "Do not think you are a warrior of legends." "Oh, a hatchling. That was explain why we never see any of the baby Krayt Dragons. The Tuskens keep killing them. And at that point, they're probably too small to form pearls." He looked down, where a glint of light reflected from the setting suns told Akoba exactly who had spoken. Ayark. Where other Tuskens had 2 metal turrets for eyepieces, the chief of the clan only needed 1, and long ago rammed a crimson jewel into the useless right eye. It plugged the hole true, but it also reminded everyone who was in charge. Seriously, if you can find a cheap copy of the Kenobi novel somewhere, pretty sure you can get one at half-price books, read it. It's amazing. And
wait, Ayark. Yeah, that is the same person from the Kenobi series.
Kenobi novel, but yeah.
Novel, right.
"Come down from there," Ayark said. "Looking up at you itches my neck." Akoba thought of 5 things to say, banished them all as unwise, and complied. Relatable. The shambling twin brothers assembled nearby. "We did meet the challenge," Eivor said. Yes. Ayar turned to where our companion held the twins' current weapons. "Our law says whoever has 2 hands can hold a Gadurfi. I'm not sure what it makes of warriors who keep dropping them." Okay, that.
Oh yeah, Ayark. You knew Asherad. Oh yeah, Ayark. You did know Asherad right before he was disgraced.
And had his hand chopped off in the process. Remember, only a warrior with 2 hands can hold a Gadurfi. The brothers shrank back in shame, but Akoba did not withdraw. "It was no small victory, Ayark," he gestured to the corpse. "A canyon Krayt, the largest hatchling of its kind." Okay, yeah, so you've got canyon Krayt dragons, which are the kind you fight in KOTOR.
Those have 4 legs.
greater crate dragons, which look like giant snakes, and then you got the kind we saw in The Mandalorian, which still doesn't have a canonical name, at least not as far back as I checked.
I think, I don't know what that is either, but the greater crate dragon, those have many legs.
Yeah. I'm starting to wonder if the one in The Mandalorian is some kind of Sith spawn.
No.
And should its parents find you, you will be the flattest of ours. Ayark's head shook. I will kill its whole family, Akobus said, clenching his cloth rat's fist. You will see. I will lead the clan in battle someday. So you have told us all. Ayark stepped past and evaluated the crate. I admit it is a worthy feat. When I became chief long ago, the clan had been brought so low our younglings were forced to kill Logra in the nights of adulthood. And womp rats. And sand beetles. Okay, that's gotta be funny. Like, sand people reduced to glorified pest exterminators like they're in an RPG side quest. At the moment of his triumph, Akobo was in no mood for another lecture on how Ayark's chieftaincy had saved the clan. I mean, if you read the Kenobi novel, you know that it did. I meant what I said, he declared. I fear nothing. Send me and I will lead a hunt tonight. Ayark looked back abruptly. Only a fool fears nothing.
Really? Because one moment, Ayark says, I fear nothing. Then walking into some terrifying creature, goes back and says, I meant what I said. I fear nothing, but that thing, it scares me.
Okay, but you realize Akoba said that and not Ayark, right?
Oh.
Akoba stalked around the corpse, then either I am a fool or you are wrong. Akoba stalked around the corpse, making a show for the others. What should I fear? Surely not the settlers and their machines, and I know not to walk near a Sarlacc. He pointed to the north. Or do you mean the hut? Let him spend a day out here on the waste beneath the suns. He will shrivel down to the ward he really is.
Also, same people who say, I fear nothing, have never been to Bogano and met the horrifying nightmare known as Ogdo Bogdo.
And, of course, they don't know the might a hut can bring to bear if they've got the resources. Sharad had learned the hard way. Seriously, don't go up against Orsing single-handedly. You will lose. The lion amused his cousins. Amphibian warts were an odd thing to find on a desert planet, but most Tuscan younglings had clobbed at least a few of the squat creatures to death. Ah, not the little froggies. They are so cute.
Yeah, also the same people don't have Asherad to back them up anymore.
Yep. Which means they're hopelessly outmatched against Obi-Wan. And Vader if he ever comes back. Which he will. And he's going to kill so many of them. Ayark, however, was neither entertained nor deterred. Well, I suppose they got horror. Or Tahiri isn't old enough at this point, though. Ayark, however, was neither entertained nor deterred. You speak only of the obvious threats, the chieftain said. But there are magics in the desert. I have lived long and seen great powers at work, wielded by beings beyond our ken. I have had my dinner and need no story.
I'm starting to question if Tahiri was even born yet.
Yeah, I need to check that. Akoba gestured back toward the hills. I am sure there are children back at the camp to scare. Ayark grabbed his shoulder firmly. It takes more than courage to lead. It takes eyes that are open. And I have one more than you. You leap at gust of wind, Ayark, Akoba snorted. And then caught himself. He stepped back and made his respects. I fear only you, my chieftain. That is a start. Ayark's jewel caught the light from the setting suns. Claim your bantha and lead your hunts, but before you strike at anything, report back to me. The chieftain waved dismissively at the twins. And if those two lose their Gadurfi of the Dark, lose them. Ayark is the true fool, he had told the brothers more than once on their overnight hunts. Akoba did not fear their wagging tongues. Open ambition was a feature of Tuscan life. No sand person would respect a quiet schemer. Wait, they call themselves sand people? Pretty sure they would call themselves Gorfas. Anyways. Also, you raid 4 Tuscan once and you're named after it forever. What kind of Viking shiz is that? There was some security offered by his youth. He was so far are from ready for a confrontation that Ayark would likely not take offense. Akoba had no idea how old the chieftain was, only that Ayark had held the role longer than anyone in memory. That in another clan would have suggested someone aged and in danger of being challenged. Not Ayark, who remained as fierce, if not fiercer, in battle as any warrior Akoba had seen. And yet somehow the chieftain had grown tentative, particularly when Akoba and the twins returned from their night stalking. They had reported seeing a droid trundling along a valley along the southeastern limb of the Jundlands, monitoring along in darkness without evident care. Careful, that's the Jundland General's territory. Mechanical effigies made to talk, droids were one of the more puzzling features of settlers' lives. They were rarely of interest to the Tuscans, who usually neither knew nor cared what they had been built for. The tummy droid had one sure purpose, however. It made for excellent baits. Someone would come for it, and then Akoba would strike. If he was allowed to. It was Ayark again. The droid's trail passed not far from a place, the chieftain said, where an entire camp of Tuscans had been mysteriously massacred in the night many cycles ago. You know, you think Anakin ever told R2 about that? I mean, I know Obi-Wan kind of just figured it out on his own, but... Most clans had avoided the ruins ever since, ascribing ill omens to the area.
Well, Anakin did tell the Tusken Raider who became a Jedi about it, and he's all like, "Oh, I see. That's nice, but thing is, Anakin, yeah, I know you feel guilty about killing sand people and all, but would you do it again if you had the chance?" He said, Anakin darkly said yes, but the Tusken Raider, Asherad, who it was, after Order 66, went back to Tatooine, was disgraced, and left.
Okay. Sam. If we give them the full story of Darth Krayt, we'll be here all day.
Yeah. I'm just going to say that Anakin told Asherad about the massacre of the Sand People.
Okay. You got that across. Thank you very much. Most clans avoided the ruins ever since, ascribing ill omens to the area. More nonsense. But AR took it seriously enough that the chieftain insisted on going along with the trio that morning to shadow the droid's trail, with Banthus, in case they needed to move faster or carry spoils, and with blaster rifles. Your superstition verges on cowardice, Akoba thought, as he and Ayark watched the desert from a craggy outcrop. They had gone to a spot along the droid's path where the gorge zigged and zagged, offering multiple settings for an ambush, and there were even safe places nearby to leave the Banthus. But Ayark had made them take the long way around to reach the place, and the chieftain had stopped repeatedly to study their surroundings. "We have wasted much of the day," Akoba said as they waited on a hillside and watched. "We could have been here long ago. There is more to avoid here than you know. A great power indeed. Beyond these mountains dwells—" "I will not hear it!" Akoba snapped. "What can happen with the suns high above? I do not know what you are trying to—" "Quiet!" Ayark yanked at Akoba's robe, but it was not to accost him. He heard a moment later what the chieftain had heard, the sound of an approaching engine. The two hustled to a promontory when they saw a land speeder, an infernal human machine zooming into the valley below. "This is it!" Raising his rifle, Akoba drew a bead on the distant vehicle as it raced from left to right, only to withdraw when Ayark touched his shoulder. The chieftain was correct about this, at least. The land speeder was too far away, and if its occupants were coming from the droid, they would surely stop when they reached it. So in case you wondered why the Tusken Raiders didn't just snipe them, they couldn't get a clear shot. The warriors moved swiftly with their Banthas to a ravine southeast of the last place they'd seen the droid. A narrow ridgeline separated them from their prey. Akoba could hear the engine of the land speeder whine to a halt. Leaving the hairy beast to burn behind, he and the twins began scaling the ridge. There was little time to lose. So when another hush call came from over his shoulder, Akoba looked back in aggravation. "What is it, Ayark?" The one-eyed chieftain stood partway down the rise, rifle in hands, and gestured to the mountains to the north. "This place. I tried to tell you, it is near the lair of a powerful shaman." You know, it's still never been explained how R2 knew where Obi-Wan lived.
I don't know that answer either.
Ooh, that could make for an interesting short story. "A what? A human, yet more than flesh," Ayark said. "We have avoided this area too for years." "What have you not avoided, old fool?" Akoba looked up to where the twins had completed their ascent and then called back to Ayark quietly. He has militia, like the settlers. He needs none. The creatures of the sands answer him. Aark paused in reflection. No.
Oh yeah, that's right. You and the Hermit of Tatooine are good friends.
No, the very air answers him. Also, why is she not talking about the lightsaber? She's definitely seen the lightsaber. Hmm. Akoba stared, incredulous. Then he found his canteen and pitched it down the hillside. You should stay here, my chieftain, and drink. The suns have gotten to you. I tell you, I speak the truth. The two watched as Eivor scrambled down the incline. The speeder did stop, he reported when he reached them. A human and another droid. This one a golden man. Aark looked up. What does the human look like? Hair the color of sand. Young, I think, as we are. Dressed as a farmer. Akoba regarded his cousin and raised his hands to the chieftain. You see, not your wizard. Come on. But Aark stood transfixed, trying to work it out. A farm child and his droids, all the way out here? Here? It does not augur well. Akoba stared for a moment, then shrugged. He shook his head. You disappoint me. Go down and remain with the Banthas. We will bring the prizes to you. Aark responded with reluctance. Go, take, but do not kill unless you must. You know, I wonder what would happen if they had killed Luke. Do you think that would have finally caused Obi-Wan to snap?
Yeah, more importantly, that would have caused an Imperial victory for so many things.
Or would it have caused Luke to finally break past his mental blocks and, do you think he could summon Force Lightning on instinct or something?
I don't think so.
Okay, but he would have at least have tossed them around a bit.
That definitely seems possible.
Akoba turned back to face his cousin, and together they started scaling the rise. A Tusken chief scared of shadows and counseling mercy? Madness. Well, out of character is serious business. Perhaps he thought he might be making a challenge for leadership much sooner than he ever imagines. The twins threw Sandy Hair's limp body to the ground. It had been simply done moments earlier by Akoba, his first attack as an adult warrior. He had not killed, as he would have preferred, but he had disarmed the young farmer in an instant and had knocked the boy unconscious after filling him with abject terror. And in case you're wondering why Luke doesn't have brain damage, Force heal. An auspicious start, Akoba thought, to a legend of his own. Perhaps doddering simps would speak his name in low tones one day. Heh, Sand.
It's okay, I'll just force heal this. Force what? Yeah, I said force heal. Why has that been a thing? Like, forever? That's literally the reason I turned to the dark side.
Video game mechanics. His partners had been forced to satisfy themselves with chopping the arm off the Golden Man, which, in the listing of feats, hardly counted. Oh, so that's why they did it. For bragging rights. Dicks. Where is the squat droid? Eivor asked. You wish another glorious kill? Akoba sneered. Forget it. Get to work. Together, the three rifled through the materials on the land speeder, searching for anything that might be of use.
I think these guys have made their point with the farm boy and the golden droid.
But at least now we know why they didn't go looking for R2. It was the raiders' nature to look quickly, although there was definitely no rush. Out here, there was no rescue possible for the stricken traveler. Nothing to worry about it. Hey, you! Hey! The sound echoed through the gorge, loud, terrible, and charging, as it reverberated through the rocks. It could only have come from one thing. A canyon crate, Akoba thought. And not just any. A queen. The sound had... Okay. Queen great dragons. That's new. The sound had come from the northeast. All three Tuskens looked in that direction simultaneously, fully expecting to see the vengeful parents of the beast they had slain the day before. That, in this place, would mean their deaths. Yet what they beheld was far more unexpected. A figure cloaked in brown, face invisible beneath a pointed hood. Figure that in no world the Tuskens knew could ever make such a sound. The shaman! In the split second during which he processed that thought, Akoba was gripped by fear. In every measure, the same fear he had just struck into the farm boy. Images flashed through his mind. Akoba's limbs went into motion, turning him from his position by the hood of a land speeder. His cousins were already on the move, fleeing. He rushed to follow. He was over the ridge when he dared to think again. What had he just seen and heard? Akoba had never clambered onto a bantha with two other warriors before, but that was what had happened. They had made for the nearest ride, and the war leader had followed on the other. Ar caught up with the trio far from the gorge. The cousins were off their mounts, huddled by a ridge and chattering to each other nervously. Acoba sat on the sand at the feet of the man, the reins still clenched tightly in his hands. He barely noticed as the chieftain approached. I heard, Aark said. I was already in the saddle. Acoba said nothing. You fear, the chieftain said. Desert magic has not touched you before. Or, I felt it. Acoba did not look up. It was not just the sound I felt, in the presence of a mature crate. Ooh, mind tricks. Come for vengeance after the one I killed. And do dragons seek vengeance? Acoba struggled to process the thought. He looked up. This one did. I felt it in the sound. But when I looked, I saw that figure. He stopped, worried he looked a fool. He had said too much, but he allowed one last thing. I did not trust my eyes. Aark stared at him, and announced. The settlers call him Ben. What? How do you know this? All that live on the waste I have seen, Aark said, and I first saw Ben before your birth. He is an outlander, a wizard. He dwells at the edge of the junglands. Acoba heard but did not understand. If he is a danger, why did we not strike him before? At what risk? It was better to yield this area. The desert is large, and I think he has nothing worth taking. Aark paused. We are taught that all who live are the Tuscan's enemies, but that may be too simple. There are things that will leave us alone if we do the same. A Sarlacc will not come to visit your camp, the chieftain stood. Acoba nodded, breathing normally again. Then the young warrior looked over to the cowering cousins, both shivering in the suns. Something did not sit right. No, Acoba said at last, glancing at the skyline. It cannot stop here. We must go back, he stood. Aark started with surprise. Back to the gorge? Yes, in greater numbers. He dusted himself off and looked to the chieftain. This is our place, as hated as it is. We must show that no one may trespass with perfidy, not even wizards. Aark regarded him with evident irrespect. If you would do this, then go. You have my sanction. I must decide for the whole clan. But you are an adult, Acoba. Your life belongs to you, as to the lives of any who would join you. Will I die? If you are fated to. But you will be seen to die as a Tuscan. Aark watched the trio vanish into the dunes in search of reinforcements, confident they had not the slightest chance of finding the wizard on their return. Life under the suns had changed Ben's appearance, but it had not stolen his senses. If Sandy Hair was someone the wizard cared about, Ben would waste no time in spiriting him and his droids away. Sandy Hair. That's Aark for you, always giving everyone nicknames. So allowing Acoba to give pursuit was a gesture, but not a wholly empty one. Aark knew there were certain rites even a chieftain must perform. Acoba's prize was already lost, but there was no sense in dispiriting him, not so soon after his reaching adulthood. So few warriors had his drive, and defiance was what separated killers from carrion in the Jundland Waste. Acoba had learned to fear this day, and leading his companions on a chase so soon after a scare, he would rise in their respect. A dual lesson in a place where everything cast shadows. Perhaps one day Acoba too would use the example of the wizard in teaching others.
Oh yeah. Wonder if Aark has ever met Obi-Wan Kenobi's new apprentice, the skunk-haired one. Maybe that was... maybe it was Off-World that Obi-Wan met the guy.
Are you talking about Ferris Owen?
Yeah.
I don't think he ever visited Tatooine.
Yeah, I thought so. I never read the books, so I wouldn't know if he visited or not.
He did not. I did. Perhaps one day Acoba too would use the example of the wizard in teaching others. Whenever that happened, Aark suspected Ben would still be around. Not for much longer. In earlier times, the chieftain had expected the sorcerer to leave, as most settlers with any wisdom eventually did. But he had remained, clinging tenaciously on the edge of existence, watching over this place or that. He seemed bound to the lands the Tuscans were, and yet not like them. The Sand People lived under an ancient curse. So, do you think that's got anything to do with the Rakata?
Actually, that makes sense.
Any higher power capable of shackling Ben to the desert lived today, wielding a might too frightening to consider. No, the wizard might escape, or he might be set free, but he would not simply disappear into the sands. Such beings did not die. They shaped the fates of countless many across the stars in places no Tuscan had ever conceived of. It was idle to wonder what Ben might do if he ever left. Aark only knew what the Tuscans would do. They would raid, they would pillage, they would strike more places, places once under the shaman's protection. Not because they coveted anything there or hated Ben or sought revenge, but because that was what they were. Indeed, that was all they were, and they weren't going anywhere. Well, I mean, thankfully we know that things work out for the better in that case. I wonder how Eark feels about Boba and Din and Cobb and the rest all trying to make peace.
I think Aark feels the same way, actually, as Aark did with Obi-Wan, seeing them as noble people, just like thousands of years ago when Revan made peace with the Tuscans.
Of course, he didn't make peace with all the Tuscans. There were still some tribes that attacked him, and he slayed them all. Because to contend with Revan is to lose.
Indeed.
Alright, so we probably won't finish this one, but let's see how far we get. Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. Not to be confused with the novel Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. Some believe the desert to be barren. This proves only that they do not know the desert. Deep within the dunes dwell small insects that weave nets to trap one another, and burrowing snakes with scales the color of stones so that no hunter can find them. Seeds and spores from long-dead plants lie dormant in the warm, waiting for the rainfall that comes once a year, or decade, or century, when they will burst into verdant life, as brief as it is glorious. The heat of the sun sinks into the grains of sands until they glow, containing all the energy and possibility to become glass the color of jewels. All of these sing individual notes in the one great song of the Wills. Great song. If you've ever met the Wills, you know that there's not a lot of dignity or grandeur about them. No place is barren of the Force, and they are one with the Force can always find the possibility of life. Right, no place. No place at all. There's never been any place that's barren of the Force. No, never happens. Never happens. Awareness precedes consciousness. The warmth is luxuriated in and drawn upon before the mind is cognizant of doing so. Next comes the illusion of linear time.
No place barren of the Force? What about all the Sith planets?
No. Those aren't barren of the Force. I'm talking about Malachor 5 and...
Oh, I was thinking Nathema.
Oh, yeah. And of course we got the Vong. Ah, man, they're complicated. Next comes the illusion of linear time. Man, nuts. Does this mean everything is predestined? That sucks. But there is evidence for it. Only then does a sense of individuality rise.
Nothing is predestined!
There's constant evidence that it is. Remember the world between worlds? You couldn't change anything with it. None of the other acts of time travel ever had. There are no alternate timelines.
So it is written?
So shall it be. And it sucks. Only then does a sense of individuality arise, a remembrance of what was and what is, a knowledge of oneself as separate from the Force. It provides a vantage point for experiencing the physical world in its complexity and ecstasy, but the pain of that separation is endurable only because unity will come again, and soon. The fracture from the all, that memory of the temporal existence, is more easily summed up with the word the fracture was once called by. The name. Qui-Gon. So yeah, in case you're curious what the afterlife is like in Star Wars, this is the netherworld of the Force for you. Complete loss of identity as you just remain connected to everything. Wow, that sounds so heavenly. Yeah, I don't get how this is good. The name spoken by another. Qui-Gon has been summoned. He draws upon his memories of himself and takes shape, reassembling the form he last had in life. It seems to him that he feels flesh wrap around bones, hair, and skin over flesh, robes over skin, and then as naturally to him as though he had done so yesterday, he pulls down the hood of his Jedi cloak and looks upon his Padawan. Okay, so we have our first confirmation that he can actually appear as a physical form and not just a bunch of little twinkly lights. Obi-Wan. It is worth the travail of individual existence just to say that name again. So he says the other name too. Man. Ah, that's sweet. Obi-Wan Kenobi's hair is turned white. Lines have etched their traces along his forehead, around his blue eyes. He wears Jedi robes so worn and ragged as to be indistinguishable from the garb of the impoverished hermit he pretends to be.
There are others that can take the form of physical Force ghosts, but Qui-Gon is the first to have done it in over 1,000 years.
I mean, not really. The list is long. Long.
Did I say over 1,000 years? I meant just plain 1,000 years.
Nope, the list's still way too long for that. We can look at it together later.
What? Really? Because I thought the last Jedi Force ghost was Old Republic.
Nope, not in the slightest. He wears Jedi robes so worn and ragged to be indistinguishable from the garb of the impoverished hermit he pretends to be. Most would walk past the man without a second glance. Yet while Qui-Gon perceives the physical realities of Obi-Wan's appearance, he is not limited to human sight any longer. He also sees the confident general of the Clone Wars, the strong young Padawan who followed his master into battle. Even the rebellious little boy at the temple that no master was in any hurry to train. They are all equally part of Obi-Wan, each stage of his existence vivid in this moment. You are afraid, Qui-Gon says. He knows why. The events taking place around them are clearer to him than they are to Obi-Wan. You seek your center. You need balance. The living find it difficult not to tell the dead that which they already know. Obi-Wan doesn't even try. There may be Imperial stormtroopers waiting for Luke at the Lars farm. If so, then you will rescue him, Qui-Gon smiles. Or he may rescue himself. Or the sister will find the brother instead. Ooh, so many what ifs. So many wonderful ideas. Obi-Wan cannot be so easily comforted. Or he could be killed, cut down while still hardly more than a boy. To Qui-Gon, all human lives now seem impossibly brief. Years are irrelevant. It is journeys through the Force that matter. Some must struggle for that knowledge through many decades, others are very nearly born with it. Most never begin the journey at all, no matter how long they live.
Well, the sister and the brother also, which I thought was,
It's Luke and Leia.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking the son and the daughter of Mortis.
No, we're not making those deep cuts yet. But Luke Skywalker, Luke has a great journey yet to go, Qui-Gon says. It does not end here. You've seen this? Qui-Gon nods. This relieves Obi-Wan more than it should, because he cannot guess the shape that journey will take. Their surroundings in the physical world become clearer. The endless dunes of Tatooine stretching out in every direction, a smoldering sandcar, a hulk behind them, a dozen tiny Jawas dead. The memory of their fear and helplessness lances Qui-Gon's consciousness, as does the meaninglessness of their deaths. Although Obi-Wan has been pending to the bodies, for the moment the Jawas are seen into only by two droids. The droids comfort Qui-Gon somewhat, because they are familiar. The Force has even seen fit to bring these two back to the place where it all began. Time is a circle, the beginning is the end. It's like poetry, it rhymes. Obi-Wan murmurs, Bail Organa sent Leia herself to summon me. When I saw Padme in her so strongly, and even a little of Anakin too, I knew my exile was nearly at an end. Would you believe I find it difficult to let it go? You've adapted. You've had to. No wonder that the desert feels like home to you now, or that being a Jedi Knight has become foreign. Wait, so does that mean that he wasn't doing a lot of training? Because he seems a lot more powerful than he was before. But that can change, and faster than you might train possible. It will in fact be almost instantaneous. A transformation begun and completed the first time immediate danger beckons again. Qui-Gon looks forward to witnessing it. You know, I don't get these Force ghosts like, oh, I already know everything that's going to happen, but I'm still excited to see it. Then again, maybe this is just a Qui-Gon thing. It's so inconsistent.
I think Force ghosts I think it's basically like if you're rewatching something you've already seen before. I know how this ends, but the whole story is so great that I want to watch it again and be surprised again.
Okay, Force Ghost Obi-Wan did not act like that at all. Maybe Qui-Gon's just uniquely achieved oneness with the Force or something. I've waited for this day for a very long time, Obi-Wan says. So long as it feels as though I've waited for it my entire life. To have it in danger now, just as the great arc begins. So many factors are in play. The future is difficult to know, even more so than before. All right, we've still got a few pages left to go, so I think it's best that we just wrap up here. We'll talk about the ghosts next time. And yep, that's it.